the Boqvists have a lot to feel good about.
Yeah.
This story, first thing I thought when I read it, heartwarming.
Yeah, it is. I mean, brothers together, and, you know, we see this frequently across the NHL and through the years. It feels to me, just anecdotally, like it's becoming more and more frequent. But, you know, two brothers playing in the same organization, pretty spectacular. And two, you know, we talked about this before we came on air today, Tony. You know, these are the challenges that great teams face. You know, you're trying to keep that window open wide in a cap environment. You've got that external pressure pushing hard on, you know, your ability to keep a roster together year in, year out. You look outside for alternatives to players that have gone on. Talking specifically about these Florida Panthers, now that you lose a Brandon Montour through unrestricted free agency, it's, you know, what is plan B? How do you fashion together a decor, not from scratch, but how do you supplement that decor in a way that allows you to get past the subtraction that is Brandon Montour?
At Cup Final Media Day, Paul Maurice was so clear in saying that Bill Zito gave him a much better team this year. It doesn't often happen that a team loses the Cup Final, comes back the next year with more talent. It just doesn't. And yet, this is a tribute to Bill Zito. It's not about sentimentality when he puts together the Boqvists. This is about putting together a back end that will be able to hopefully skate in the footsteps of the group that helped them win their first Stanley Cup in franchise history. As you look at the additions and the subtractions, what's your biggest takeaway when you first look at it?
Focusing on the decor. You look at two guys on the subtractions column. Go four notches down. Oliver Ekman-Larsson, and right before that, Brandon Montour. Those are two impactful defenders for these Florida Panthers.
Oh, yes.
Instrumental. Here's the interesting thing. I think going forward, you know, on the additions board, you've got a Nate Schmidt, who I've long been a fan of. I think he's just a fabulous defender. And again, a guy you would covet just in terms of his contribution, character and chemistry inside the room. But Nate Schmidt will make an impact there and goes a long way towards diminishing the subtraction of an OEL, of a Brandon Montour. Nate Schmidt is a guy that's probably going to factor in as a 5 or a 6 for this group. Depends on how they kind of structure the roster. But the second point in all that, here's another luxury that the players have kind of given their general manager in this respect. Gustav Forsling and Niko Mikkola really, throughout the regular season, you see their game progress, but in the postseason, this is where it really came true. There were moments in the postseason you could fashion an argument for Gustav Forsling as the Conn Smythe Trophy winner. Just the contribution he made to his group, the way he stepped up, and the distinction from, you know, other earlier parts of his career, how he had really kind of risen to the occasion. Point I'm making is, yes, you hate to lose a Brandon Montour, but adding in the value that now Mikkola and Forsling are contributing on a nightly basis, adding in a Nate Schmidt, you've gone a long ways. If you're Bill Zito, you've gone a long ways just in terms of addressing that void left by a Montour.
And there's a natural parallel. The guy who was quarterbacking the power play when it mattered most in Game 7, OEL, bought out by the Vancouver Canucks. What a difference a year makes. And in the case of Nate Schmidt, bought out by Winnipeg.
Right.
This is a young man who we saw with the Vegas Golden Knights in a Cup final, playing with tremendous emotion and heart and determination. For him to join a team that has the kind of culture this one has is a statement. Do they need to add more, or are you comfortable with what it looks like right now?
You know, I really do think if there's another number for a top 4 transaction out there, and it's difficult to say that, you know, if it hasn't kind of broken loose by this point, odds are unlikely that it will. It leaves you looking forward to the trade deadline for these Florida Panthers, and by then you've got a long look at how has this decor I've assembled performed over the course of the year. That may be an area they want to address, but I do see really solid depth there. The kind of a group that is going to defend exceptionally well for a team that plays really solid structure, just top to bottom. and does, again, the decor have some offensive upside. So I'm content to kind of look at this group, see how they perform over the course of the year. Come deadline time, you might identify there's a need there. Hard to say.
Tremendous momentum. President's Trophy, Cup final, winning the Cup. That's their last 3 seasons. Wow.